All right, what's up, Morino? How you doing today, man?
Yeah, hi, Leighton, and everybody that's watching your channel and whatnot. And everybody that's watching my channel, I'm fine, and I'm assuming with you, ditto. Same for you.
Oh man, you know it. Just figuring out new ways, new magic paths, and just getting things all kind of figured out and set up, man. And yeah, there's. I know last time we talked, it was a lively, awesome conversation, and I just wanted to kind of touch base. I mean, there's some random questions that I've just kind of ponder as a magician, and just love to hear kind of your approach towards things. Just because, and everyone, I'm gonna have his website attached to this video. It's definitely something you want to check out. It just comes to learning from different spirits, different pantheons, and this is where my first question kind of takes. Um,
Mhm.
what do you find is like what are you more drawn to? Because there's the infernals, there's the angelic, and I've even seen you do some things with planetary magic and the Hindu pantheon. And so like for people that kind of just don't understand how all these things can maybe all exist at once or what's the most potent or why you do what you do, I'd just love to kind of pick your brains at kind of your different thoughts about each of those, kind of pantheons and their potency and the pluses and minuses of them.
Okay. I favor working with celestial spirits, so angels primarily and holy spirits. And I work primarily with archangels. And of course, it's purely about quality and not so much about quantity, or at the
Mm-hmm.
very least, a balance between the two. But quality enjoys priority in general. So what's important is that with any entity you work with, doesn't matter which one it is, that you essentially give the entity their due. It's like tit for tat. Okay, you want like legendary results, then you're going to have to really put your back in it times 1,000 in terms of what you give them, uh, in not just in the way of like offerings and rewards, but also the effort and bonding. And it, of course, has to be because you want that to be the case, not because you feel in some way obligated directly or indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
As for the others, like pagan gods, so any god that is, or any spirit that is non-holy in nature, like non-Judaistic or non-Christian, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, any spirit that was whether self-aware or unaware, created by man, like a pagan god from any culture, any civilization, any background, does not matter. Um, the MOs or the modus operandi, the method of working is the same, honestly, but the Holy Spirits are much stronger and much more potent for obvious reasons. Pagan gods are essentially spirits simply created by people. Um, Traditionally, referring back to like ancient civilizations, like for example the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Norse, etc. For
Mm-hmm.
them, it was simply a way to explain forces that lie beyond their control and that they or whose mercy they were at, better said both. And they simply needed a way to come up with things, as in, they had to come up with a plausible explanation. For example, um, lightning, thunder, and they said to themselves there has to be like a higher being that's responsible for all of this happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how these gods came into existence. That's why in almost every civilization you'll come across spirits or gods that are revered and that are essentially attached to a specific specialty referring to some aspect of life. That's why you've got the god of love, god of thunder, god of water, god of this, god of that,
Mm-hmm.
because these are things that were important to the people that worship these spirits. As in, hey, we need to eat, so we need like fertility, we need like bountiful plenties in the way of agriculture, in the way of harvesting crops. Everything needs to go great in that area. Otherwise, we're fucked and we're going to starve to death, arguably. Same thing with warfare. It just goes on. And that's how you have all these spirits that specialize in warfare and fertility and this and that and love and sex. It just goes on.
Now, do you not think that, like the ancient Sumerians and such, when they talked about these giants and these demigods, essentially, across all these other pantheons, they kind of have like an ideal figure, like Astarte is Inanna, which is Ishtar. There's these different masks of these beings. So, do you think that all these beings were just of kind of like the forces? of like, like the outside weather, like this, that, or do you actually think that maybe there were these ancient beings here beforehand, before the flood, for instance, and that these entities that maybe aren't a physical incarnation anymore are now on the other realm, essentially, and you can work with them there? Or are you more thinking that all those beings are more egregores? Is that what you're kind of saying? Most entities are egregores?
Yeah. They're completely separate. Okay, pagan gods, or as I like to pronounce it, egregores. But yeah, the way you pronounce it is okay as well. They're
Mm-hmm.
simply thought forms. But the difference is that pagan gods are essentially stronger than your average egregore or thought form, because they have had the benefit of like years upon years upon years of worship. It's essentially like a supercharged egregore. I mean, the way I'm here right now, if I, for example, were to start a cult and I were to say, even if I made up like some imaginary god, I simply said from today on, we're going to worship the god by the name Network, just some silly name. And I essentially attach attributes to network, as a network is good for infrastructure, he's good for this, he's good for that. And I essentially see to it that I have children and that they continue the lineage of the cult, and it turns out that it spans over a century, then you're going to have a pagan god that has like a century worth of experience in all the things that he was attributed to, or she or it was attributed to. And, my cult would be, and their descendants would be their primary worshippers. And if more people enter the fray, the better for the entity. But
Mm-hmm.
this is regardless of whether my followers were aware of the fact that this is an egregore, this is a thought form, that it didn't exist. It doesn't matter what they think, whether they're aware of it or not, or whether they simply thought, hey, this is, a spirit that already existed and, wasn't relying on us. That's how
Mm-hmm.
things essentially happen. And in reference to like the demigod concept that you mentioned, yeah, I have that article and a video embedded on my website as well, called the Nephilim. The Nephilim is what you're thinking about. It's like
Yep.
the realistic version of Goliath, like in the biblical story of David and Goliath. Yeah, the Nephilim were real, and the Nephilim primarily existed when angelic entities, so angels essentially, they interbred with physical people, normal people like women. But these were primarily angels that were cast out, so more on the darker side, because obviously with celestials that's a big no-no. Um, and I don't, it was a long time ago. It was like years ago. I don't remember exactly what I said in that article, but yeah, these entities, of course, they're long gone. They did exist. They did roam the earth, but they're long dead. And you can still work with them as spirits. So it would be like semi-necromantic and just plain up magic, because of their split alignment, to put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, half entity or half angelic entity, or half fallen angel, half man. And that explained their appearance. That's why they were like slightly bigger, slightly taller, slightly this, slightly that. And of course, you have some sources online, like would that like to exaggerate just for the sake of shock effect. That they were like 10 meters tall, etc. No, that wasn't true. They were like bigger than the average person. Think like the wrestler Andre the Giant, but without all the deformities. At best, like 1.5 to 2 times as big as Andre the Giant, but that's it. Nothing like exaggerated, like 10 meters, 20 meters, and stuff like that. No, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
because
no.
there are statements like in the Bible talking about how big the beds were that the giants laid upon, and it does kind of, I would say, 30 feet tall. I think that it was somewhere along in there. And then there's other, depictions on walls. Now,
Uh-huh.
some people could say it's just symbology, but
Uh-huh.
when they have the giants that look like, they're this big, for instance, and the humans
Yeah,
this big, you know,
yeah.
there was definitely those bloodlines and things occurring, but my question would be, why would you find the celestial the most potent and strongest? Like, would you say that they are eternal, or they also have passed away, or is that what kind of the difference between the celestial and fallen angels in your perspective is? The fallen angels kind of lost that everlasting potency to be alive, essentially.
Yeah. Before I get to that question, in
Hmm.
reference to what you were saying earlier, How much is 30 feet in meters? I think like what, 20 meters tall or something.
Uh,
Uh, Let me briefly check.
I'm gonna say
Uh,
18 feet, but that's probably a
30 feet
BS.
to meters. Yeah, see, 30 feet in meters is like 9.14 meters. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that is correct. But my point is, I've seen, like, for example, misinformational so-called sources where they're like twice to three times that much. And I'm like, no, 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 that's an exaggeration. They weren't that big. Okay. You can expect them to be like Goliath, essentially. Goliath was like, if you put like three, four, five, six guys on top of each other, or 10 guys at most, then you'd say, okay, that's approximately how big Goliath was in David v. Goliath. But yeah, that's essentially how big they were, but definitely not big like the earth shaking when they move or when they put a step. That's an exaggeration, like you see in horror movies or B-rated horror movies. No, 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 no. That's an exaggeration. They were not that big.
See, and that's
Uh,
there are some bones that have been dug up, but it's hard to say whether or not they're real or
yeah,
fabricated. And then
yeah,
did the Vatican take this stuff to hide them, or
mm,
what's going on? Like what's the full story? Because there are
yeah.
military operations where people talk about that, and then Black Ops or whatever comes in and takes everything. But then again, is that a lie? Like
Yeah,
what's the
no.
truth?
Generally speaking, honestly, any source that you come out there that is highly likely to be a hoax because I know what you're referring to. I remember seeing like some archaeological image where you have like a skeleton in the ground laying like this, and you have archaeologists wiping it off, and it's like six, seven times bigger than the average person, or bigger even, like 10, 20 times. And I'm like, yeah, it's highly likely to be a hoax because I'm not an archaeologist, but for one, everything was like in perfect condition. And look at how long ago we're talking about. Like the skeleton was in near perfect condition, no scratches or blemishes, no fractures, nothing. And I'm
Well,
like, yeah, it's. I'm not gonna say that guaranteedly that it's like fake, etc. But for the most part, you can expect it to be a hoax, similar to like majority of Loch Ness sightings and stuff like that, and
hmm.
cryptozoological things, cryptozoological sources, okay, Bigfoot and all that crap. It's just, I'm not saying that Bigfoot, obviously, most likely Bigfoot exists, but the so-called evidence that people show is always like flimsy. It's not
Mm.
concrete. It's always
I,
like, oh, why is it so grainy at that specific moment? You can't get an HD camera, but literally every single thing is like UFOs. Everything is like staticky. You can't see anything. It looks like a disc. And you're like, how convenient. People literally, they can take like an HD picture of their dog or something in different positions so easily, but they can't, what, all of a sudden that they didn't have their camera with them with something like that occurred. It's all too convenient and all too much of a coincidence.
it is, but there are times where I've had rituals where like I have 100% battery, and then all of a sudden the battery gets drained, super quick,
Mhm.
or you have different
Yeah,
things that occur when high intensity
yeah,
psychic energy, like like
yeah,
lights going out in your own house,
yeah,
like when you
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
angry. So
No,
there
no, no.
are those things too, but you are right. Like when it comes to
Yeah,
hard evidence,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't find it.
HD camera,
Yeah,
4K.
exactly. It's always some excuse or another, etc. Like if you want to see footage of normal animals, then yeah, you can catch footage. Even doesn't matter how rare they are, the rarest of birds, everything has been caught in HD and processed and displayed on National Geographic. But when it comes to a disputed creature, and there have been like 10 sightings, why isn't one single person capable of like doing what common sense tells you to do and just like be able to record it normally? Every time it's some excuse, it's something this, it's something that. So yeah, that's the answer to your first question, or the first part of it. Now the
Yeah.
second part, with rituals and whatnot, yeah, no, that's completely different. Okay, all of that is completely legitimate and everything. Like it's nothing to me. It's like laughable. It's like breeding 101. Yeah, stuff like that will happen. If you, for example, offer food to a spirit, the spirit's going to drain the spiritual energy from that food,
Mm.
and as a result, the food is going to rot a lot quicker, like 8 to 10 times quicker. For example, you put out meat, it would last like 8 hours outside, just like not outside as in the outdoors, but like in your temple or ritual area or ritual space. It would, if you left it like that without, and there was no ritual, it's just like you leaving food out miscellaneously. It would last like 6, 7, 8 hours. You could come back at nighttime and it would still be edible. It would be like it would be. It's a little bit like stale or staley, but still, it's
Mm.
edible. But if you offer it to a spirit, you'll notice that literally in like less than an hour, okay, it'll immediately start to go bad and decay. And even if you do eat it, for example, as an experiment or similar, you will notice the difference because I've done so from first-hand experience. When I was a beginner, after I like hosted rituals, because I used to offer like home cooked meals to the guys I worked with, and sometimes after all of that hard work, you don't really feel like doing anything. You're like a little bit exhausted, a little bit beat, and I also had to cook for myself. And I said to myself, you know what? Is it okay if I eat like your food? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And I tasted the difference right away. It's like eating dry bread without bread spread of any kind. It's like it's almost like what people that are Christian, they know what I'm talking about. The thing that the priest always, when you're like you have your Holy Communion or you go to church,
Your chalice,
especially no, not the chalice. He puts wine in the chalice. He gives you something that he calls the body of
communion.
Christ. Yeah, yeah, and it's usually white or brownish or something.
Hmm.
And then when you put it in your mouth, it's just like it tastes so stale to the point where it sticks to like the top of your mouth or similar, like that. That's what it tastes like. And I I remember when I ate like everything, a normal home cooked meal, I was still hungry. And I was like, I can taste that there is no more energy in that thing. Only the material is left. And I literally was still hungry. I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, I'm still hungry. I feel that I ate something, but only materially. It's like drinking water. And you feel like, hey, there's something in your stomach, but it's not nourishing you. It
Hmm.
has no nutritional value whatsoever. And yeah, it's the same thing with that.
Like candles. So like I had a candle and I dedicated the whole thing to King Belloth. But once it got down towards like the end of it, I was like, all right, the rest of the candle, rest of that power be like extinguished right now during this ritual. And then I put out the candle, and you could tell there was no more energy left on the candle after it was blown out because it is that intention. And then it's you can also do the opposite where you empower. Like understanding what prayer over food, and then if you have like you maybe a drop of your blood or whatever in a wine chalice to a spirit and you offer it to them and then they say no, now you drink it, you can feel that energy change, but that's the whole exchange. And you're totally right, I've done it with apples, and the apples definitely decay way quicker, and it's
Yeah,
like
they
damn.
decay way quicker. Yeah, yeah. Um, Specifically for the archangel that I work with, that currently enjoys the highest of priority. He used to be like my second in command, but now he is number one in terms of priority, called Sandalphon, the archangel that rules the earth and nature overall. Um, when I was a beginner, I used to offer plants to him. You can find all of that on my website. I have like a picture, etc. I used to offer plants to him because that's his alignment. And everything decayed like super quick to the point where I bought like a new plant like every. We're talking about plants that are supposed to last like a year without any kind of specific care, like really die-hard jungle plants that can survive on their own. And it literally dies out in a week or something. It completely shrivels up like nothing. And I have to do it every week. I even bought, I remember in 2019, I bought expensive roses. We're talking about like $50 roses, $100 kind of roses just for one rose, like really expensive
Oh
roses.
wow.
And I like to put just 700, just seven approximately, like a bouquet, a mini bouquet. It doesn't even last like an hour. In like an hour or half an hour, it's all yeah, it's gone. Everything, every leaf fell off of that rose, every petal, everything. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's not an issue.
Now, what is it that is that difference with the Celestials? Because I know you work with them quite a bit, and I know you work with Samael, and
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
I was just wondering because when I grew up I prayed to Raphael and
Hmm.
Mark, Archangel Michael, and then like
Hmm.
Ophal, but
Hmm.
that's really about it. And so hearing about their potency, because I heard you
Hmm.
talking at the interview about that. Yeah, I just
Hmm.
really love to kind of hear why do you think that they're so potent, and does it just feel like more power when you do rituals with them?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, it's like obvious. They're more potent to say the least because they're simply the strongest. Angels are literally God's messengers. They're like holy beings created by God for the purposes of ruling the world as God sees fit. And yeah, it's like the CEO of a company having like a board of directors and or a department head. and all of them does their thing, and they listen to the CEO. They take commands from him, and they do their thing, and it just goes on. That's
So,
why. I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Anyways, I was going to finish up by saying that that's why most of the angels they have they have el at the end of their name. Everything is Michael, Samael, just goes on, because the L is Hebrew, if I remember correctly, for meaning of God, essentially, or just plain God. So the angels essentially have names that have meanings. So literally, for example, Michael means who is God or champion of God. Raphael means the light of God or God's healing, and it just goes on. Those are notable examples. Samael means wrath of God or severity of God, based on their their rulership or dominion. So bluntly put or simplistically put, when God created the world, God said, "Okay, I created the world. I'm going to create a couple of angels now. You take care of everything in the world that has to do with anger, hatred, warfare, severity. So anytime I want to kick ass, okay, you'll be my weapon. When I tell you to destroy something, you destroy it, and that's Samael essentially,
Hmm.
in a nutshell. With Raphael, it was like, okay, you're going to rule the sun. Anything that has to do with healing, success overall, and light and everything giving life, you're going to deal with that, and it just goes on and on and on. So all of them have their permanent stations, and because God wills it the same way He wills everything else, and they will never change station until again, unless or until God wills otherwise. But for the rest, they have their standard posts. Anything you want regarding warfare, etc., etc., the biggest guy you go to is Samael. He's literally at the absolute head. All the spirits that deal with warfare in a general sense fall under him, essentially, because the whole concept of going to war, of blood, violence, chaos, all of that stuff, he deals with that. The same way that, for example, Sandalphon, everything that has to do with the earth, the soil, the ground you walk on, nature, every tree, every plant, every flower, um, every animal essentially that lives in nature, etc. All of that is Sandalphon's domain. All of that falls under him. He rules all of that stuff. Um, and yeah, these are the two guys that I work with mainly, and the two guys that I'm going to keep working with. Um, that's why they also are tattooed on my body, their seals and everything.
Wow.
Someone by default is the one I prioritize the most, because he was essentially the one that I wanted to be as, and Sandalphon was the second most important one. But I'm at a current stage in working where essentially, not essentially, just Sandalphon enjoys priority. I've given him that position in my life, as in, hey, listen, okay, you're always going to be number one, and you're always going to be number two, but you currently enjoy number two. You currently enjoy the highest of priorities based on what I want to accomplish, and Samael, you essentially come in second in terms of priority. And yeah, that's essentially it.
Well, when it comes to people would say black magic, working with this spirit, and there's a certain cosmic rule or whatever, does that limit the type of things you can manifest, or is there essentially an angel that you can work with that can help you be able to manifest any of those things that you're going after?
By default, it doesn't matter which spirit you work with or what spirit you work with or whatever magical technique you use. God is the only one that can do everything. That's why He's omnipotent. That's why He's almighty. That's why God is the only one that can give you a literal guarantee. No one else will be able to give you a guarantee, only a metaphorical one. I can guarantee you something, but I simply mean it in a loose fashion, as in as sure can be. When I say guarantee, that's what I mean. But you can never be literally 100% sure, 100% sure of everything, because I have an article on my website called "The Importance of Astrology and Tarot in the Occult," with a bunch of embedded videos, and in it, I specifically discuss things that magical operations are subject to. The same way that just in the normal world, so to speak, that in mundane life, you're subject to so many things that you can't control. Doesn't matter how much you would like to be in control, there are things that you can't control. You can't control the weather. You can't control, something suddenly happening to your body. You can't control becoming sick all of a sudden or ill. You can't. There are so many things you can't control. I mean, you trust your car to essentially start the second you hop in and you want to drive off somewhere. But on all of a sudden on a certain day, for whatever reason, your car won't start. You check all the components, everything works fine. You're like, okay, I'm flabbergasted. Why won't it work? I don't know. I need to call a mechanic, etc. There are so many things that you have no control over, and that you'll never have control over. It doesn't matter how hard you try. You'll never be
Now,
able to be perfect.
have you heard of the Wishbox 2 point, or just in general, or anything like that? A radionics machine? Have you heard of those things?
Yeah, vaguely, but
So
nothing past that.
So my radionics box, I have been able to change the weather now 4 separate times. And it's you're able to put your intention in this box, and it has these crystals and layouts, like these magical patterns that you can dial in and then project what you desire into this box. And then when you turn it on, the frequencies from the crystals shoot out and help bring things to manifest. And that I have had, I've even bet, like for all week, it says it's supposed to thunderstorm. I was supposed to go to this racing event, this Spartan race. And so I do it 5 days out. I said, you know what? The day of, I'm going to program a machine and we won't get a drop of rain on us. And the whole week, it said 100% was going to rain. And an hour before the race, when I was leaving there, it was still raining outside. So I went up to my machine. I dialed in a clear race day. And as we drove there, 30 minutes away, it was still raining. 15 minutes away, it stopped raining. When we got out, it quit raining. And they were going to cancel the event, but they said for some reason the weather itself has just completely stopped to go like do your race and whatever. And when I looked back at with the map, it showed the weather coming in, and then it kind of opened up, kind of like an eye of a hurricane, and
Uh-huh.
kind of went around. And
Uh-huh.
so then there's some winter storm things that have occurred, but there are some things I feel like we can, and there is an ability between us, like we have God within us, and that
Uh-huh.
knowledge is able to be, acquired, and maybe what we think is not possible is actually more there's a way to make things happen. But I do see what you're saying. There's certain things in one sense you can't control that deer's going to jump out in front of you.
Yeah.
You can't control all these things. Now, maybe a spirit makes it so you can't find your keys an extra 5 minutes
Uh-huh.
in the morning, and it
Uh-huh.
helps stop that from occurring.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the end of the day, you can't. You can maybe change a judge's mind in a courtroom or something
Uh-huh.
along those lines.
Uh-huh.
It's a ritual or a spell,
Uh-huh.
but at the end of the day, and that's something I'm trying to figure out too. I'm really fascinated about all these angels you work with, and like Samael. Like, I've just now been able to really kind of dive in more about him. Um, but when it comes to like him being with Lilith and the succubus, what was your? Have you had any experiences or anything along the lines of working with her or Nama, or what you think that they possibly are? Um,
Yeah. Um, yeah, before I get to that,
mhm,
just a brief elaboration on what you said earlier. When I mentioned things about the weather and whatnot, it was purely an example because I've
mhm,
also changed the weather and I did it when I was a beginner with like little to no experience. Um, I did it simply through my own energy and I created like picture perfect weather, like 25 degrees, clear skies, not a cloud in sight, in a radius of like 50 kilometers or something like that. It's in my entire neighborhood. And I have that article on my, it's one of my oldest articles, it's just 2017 or 16. I work with a pagan god called Pazuzu.
oh,
Pazuzu is most well known from The Exorcist, like the
mm,
classical Exorcist movie where he's demonized unjustly. Okay, but in reality, he's simply a pagan god that either the Sumerians or the Babylonians worship. And they worship him just for that, for the weather and for a couple of other things, and keeping, yeah, evil spirits at bay or just dismissing them or just banishing them. And of course, I opted for the weather. Then I just checked my own readings and I was like, yeah, we're good to go. I'll be able to successfully change the weather. And I did it purely as an experiment. I had no motivation to do so. I simply wanted to test my own strength. And it wasn't a lot back then because I was a beginner. I was already strong by neutral standards. Like on a scale of 10, I was like a 7, 7.5, an 8. But it I barely offered anything, of course, and in exchange, he took my essentially a little bit of my life energy. And I noticed that I slept a lot. It took him like a week to change the weather, and I slept almost like 8 hours a day, and usually like 4 hours is enough for me. But I slept like twice as long, 8, 10 hours a day. And yeah, listen, mundane stuff like that is thingy. You can control up to a certain extent. That's the whole point of me doing what I do. As an occultist, you essentially want to bend reality to your will. That's your job. And you can do so. I simply meant that it doesn't matter how mighty you become, how hard you work, how much you ascend. Okay, you can see God Himself in a matter of speaking, um, which I've also done, but that's a different chapter. I mean, that's all on my website. But you'll never be able to just be like God, omnipotent, as in you can control everything, every single moment, every single time. Nah,
Mm.
it's like saying, hey, I know everything about the world. Nah, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, how much books you've read, how many places you've visited in the world. You'll never be able to know literally every single thing as it happens, when it has happened. And you can never be correct about every single thing.
Mm.
It's essentially your duty towards yourself to aspire to that, but doesn't matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to do so because at the end of the day, as a human being, you still have your limits, and there are forces in the world that you are still subject to, and that doesn't matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to control all of them simultaneously at the same
Yeah.
time. Nah, nah, nah.
No,
If
that
you,
makes sense. It's almost
yeah,
like
if you
you're
think
right
that,
here. Sometimes
yeah,
you can have flashes into the omnipotence of that godhood, but you're in
yeah,
it and you're out. You know what I mean? It's not
yeah.
consistent.
It's not consistent, as in you're never gonna be like on top of your game every single second of every single day, etc., etc. No, no, no. I mean, like I said, God is the only one that is perfect in every imaginable as well as unimaginable way. So you'll never be able to reach that level. But again, you still should, your duty towards yourself should still be to reach literally as high as you possibly can consistently.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need to have the common sense and the humility to understand that you'll never be able to control every single thing, everything, etc.
Now,
Okay.
you find that the Bible or the Torah or the Quran
Hmm.
is there a God that's higher than that God in your opinion, or is that the
No,
one that talks?
no, no. That's the whole point of omnipotence. Omnipotence, almighty. You're literally the biggest thing out there. Okay, and we can try to understand God, but God lies outside comprehension. Okay, anybody's comprehension. It's
Mm-hmm.
like an ant trying to understand mankind as a whole, as a civilization. You just can't. It goes beyond and above your pay grade. Again, it doesn't matter how skilled you become, how strong you become, etc. Like me, but you'll never be able to fully understand. Okay. Yeah, and God and Allah, etc., they're all one and the same, okay? Because it's all a reference to the omnipotent, it's all a reference to the Almighty. Speaking of that, there is a thing, an article and embedded videos on my website called the Dark Cairo. Um, in that, simply, let's just say, what was it, last year? Yeah, it was essentially last year or the end of 2021 when I reached the point that I wanted to reach my absolute pinnacle, where I actually seriously spoke to God and I was able to see God. But I was immediately told from the beginning, you're seeing as much as you can handle. You're seeing what you can handle, what you can comprehend and process up to that extent. I'm like, yeah, okay, makes sense. And yeah, for all my hard work, all the years, etc., and all the sacrifices, God said, I'm going to grant you the power of the dragon. And I up to present day, that was the strongest power I've ever had, essentially. That's why my logo used to be I am the dragon. That was like an old logo of mine, like a year ago. Yeah, approximately a year ago. And other magicians that I've worked with, they also saw that, and they were also like, yeah, no, your power is like this. I can barely. It feels like everything. It feels like omnipotent, and at the same time, like you can't peg it, and it's like it feels limitless. Um, for personal reasons, I had to give that up, which I don't mind. The experiences would matter, but the problem is that there is such a thing as overkill. And working with that dragon, there for accomplishing mundane goals was simply way too overkill. It was the equivalent of of simply wanting to make an omelet and crushing an egg with a sledgehammer. It's way too overkill. And I literally saw things happen that I didn't want to happen, essentially. So I got like botched results or results that were like way over the top, as in, no, 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 no. It's like asking someone to simply walk 10 meters and the person literally runs like 25 miles. So you're like, no, 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 I simply told you 10 meters, not 25 miles. And that's what happened. So I gave that up and I essentially told God, I appreciate everything, etc., but I want to give up the dragon for these reasons. And he was like, fine, but once you take it, no takesies backsies. Okay, once I take it, you're like, you're not getting it back. I'm like, yeah, fine. I know what I'm doing. I'm permanently giving it up. I don't want it anymore. It's too impractical. I'll simply stick with the guys I work with Sandalphon and Samael. And it did have benefits. As the saying goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And
Was it like a raw energy, like spiritual energy that flowed through you? It was this dragon power, essentially.
it was essentially my astral body, so my spirit, being a dragon, a huge dragon. So any person that wanted to like read me or wanted to do something towards me spiritually would just see that. They would see a dragon, a huge dragon, kind of like Smaug from Lord of the Rings, think that. And I what I did like about that power though is essentially like anybody that was stupid enough to oppose me, essentially I could easily like vanish in a matter of speaking. And I enjoyed that. I mean, because no one in my career has been stupid enough to try to challenge me magically. Not that I think highly of myself or anything like that, but no one was stupid enough because all of them know how strong I am. And yet you still had someone that was actually literally suicidal to the point where they challenged me magically by trying to curse me or something. And I'm like, seriously? Are you for real? Because, my dragon told me, hey, the person wants to do this, they want to do that. I'm like, really? Okay. Blow some fire on them. Not a lot, don't waste the energy, just a little. And the person ended up being in like a semi coma for 2 weeks, like completely knocked out and everything. And I was like, that's literally one snippet that you're getting. I don't want to waste energy on worthless crap. But
And that is a huge thing too. What's worth the energy to be used towards even wanting to initiate? If someone throws something towards you or all that, and it's
mhm.
insignificant, it's just about having
Yeah,
your own defenses up, being who
yeah,
you
exactly.
are, and
Yeah,
being able to
yeah,
shine. Just you shining authentically through your own self is a
hmm
protection in and of itself because it's an
yeah,
everlasting fire around you.
yeah.
And
I'm also not. Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy to like. I'm not the kind of guy to essentially go on the offense because, like I said, there was never any real need to do so unless it's for highly personal reasons, but not
yeah,
against someone that also practices. And generally speaking, it's like mutual self-respect. I'm like, nah, I wouldn't even like read another magician unless I explicitly wanted to or I have a bona fide reason, let alone essentially like harm or curse another magician. I would never do so. But this person was also a practitioner, and the person just in the beginning I just ignored the person, but the person kept being insistent. It's like a mosquito continuously buzzing around your head, and you're like, you can swat the mosquito just with literally one blow, but you're just ignoring it. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But the person annoyed me to such a point where I was like, okay, listen, congratulations. You annoyed me for like 0.5%, so half a percent. Now I'm going to show you a small snippet of what I can do. And yeah, for the rest, it was knocked out completely for 2 weeks. I'm like, excellent.
yeah.
Now you've
That's
learned
like
your lesson.
before would like if I feel really sketchy about someone, I just say, Nana, if they're good for me in my life, then just
Mm-hmm,
I'll let it be. But if they're not, just let me be able to see that sign. And every
mm-hmm,
time that person's like, I feel really sick right now, and I just
mm-hmm.
kinda gotta go do my own thing. And I'm like, thank you, like it's
Yeah,
something as such
yeah.
as that, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But oh yeah, but yeah, I'd love to once again hear your thoughts on Lilith, Nama,
Yeah,
Incubus, and
I
Incubus, and
was
all
gonna
that.
get to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know, dude, and I appreciate the
Uh-huh.
conversation.
Yeah. No, Lilith is married to Samael, and I have an article on Lilith, one of my oldest articles, and like quite expansive because I have worked with Lilith for a good while, and I have all of her alignments and everything. Um, And yeah, the general information that you'll find on her out there is correct. Yeah, she's the first woman before Eve. Um, but she wanted essentially to be, she wanted to be on equal footing with Adam essentially in every imaginable way, and that was not in the natural order of things. So she was naturally rebellious, and as a result, she was cast out, and Eve was made. And Eve is, as we know, the classical woman. It's the representation of of womanhood. Let's just put it that way. Um, and yeah, for the rest, she's just the queen of demons or of infernal spirits in general. Again, it makes sense obviously because Samael is like the only archangel that is dualistic in nature because his nature demands that you can't be like badass without also not having some evil in you. So he is whatever he needs to be based on the situation. And yeah, these two have like a bond, but marriage is not the same that people imagine in the material world, like between man and woman. It's different with spirits. With spirits, it's like a bond because, like a hypothetically unbreakable bond. I mean, by that logic, I'm also like married to the guys I work with, but I don't phrase it that way. It's a spiritual marriage, to put it that way. It's like the ultimate form of BFFs, essentially, best friends forever, like that. Um, just ultimate devotion, as in, like, hey, you're with me for the rest of our life, and beyond, if it's allowed. But that's it. It just stays that way. And yeah, that's all. Oh yeah, and sorry, I just want to briefly finish up by saying that because people might be wondering what happened after I gave up the dragon, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as the saying goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I've had that because it's not the first time that I had to give up like high power, etc. Because before the dragon, I worked with Jesus Christ as well. That was in
Mm-hmm.
2019, but not like any regular spirit. You can't do that. He himself came to me and said, as a reward for all of you, everything you've done thus far, God has allowed me to work with you. Father Almighty has allowed me to be by your side and to guide you, and blah blah blah. And I worked for like a year and a half with Jesus Christ, and the same thing happened, ironically, or not ironically, but in a matter of speaking, because he also said, "My power is too strong for you. We've been at it for a year and a half, and you notice what's happening, right? Yeah, you can go back to working with Samael and Sandalphon and all the others because I saw that. Because as a result, it was also overkill. This time it wasn't like a sledgehammer. It was like simply making an omelet using a regular hammer, crushing an egg using a regular hammer, and that was also not good because I noticed that I started, for example, butting heads with people, not getting along well with them over insignificant things, like borderline, like just borderline aggression, as in a serious altercation. And I was like, yeah, I see what's happening. I'm like, okay. And I simply said my goodbyes, and that was essentially it. I went back to working with the archangels and whatnot because when I worked with Jesus Christ, I was told that all the others need to back off, and they naturally backed off because they told me, yeah, Jesus is telling us to back off. It's just going to be you and him now. I'm like, okay, fine. And the entire way that I worked, I had to essentially not uproot, but I had to make some major changes. No more temple, no more altars, none of that stuff was necessary. When I stopped working with Jesus, all of that had to come back, and I literally had to like do it. I had a lot of work ahead of me. I was like, oh boy, I need to put everything back again, and I do this and this and that. It's like removing all the furniture literally in your house and taking it to a storage locker and then having to put it back after a year. Oh crap, everything back. Oh god, okay. Yeah, it's one hell of a task, but of course I did it without any question or hesitation. And now, in any case, now in the wake of just permanently thinking, giving up the dragon, my power level is pretty much unlimited. Not pretty much, it is unlimited. There is no limit to my power now. And I notice that my power is more refined. So if you were to look at my spirit, for example, my astral body, you would just see like a huge Nephilim humanoid creature, usually holding like something big, like a sledgehammer or something. Um, and if you ask me, okay, how strong is he? You would see the unlimited symbol. Because people have told me that. Well, I see unlimited symbol. I'm like, yeah, that's simply my energy level. There is no limit to how much energy I have. I can consistently like push out energy nonstop, essentially, without getting tired or anything like that.
Now, do you do
Uh,
anything for your diet that also helps, like interval, get the whole system fluid to be able to do that, or do you really have whatever you want?
no, not really. I do whatever I want essentially. Ever since the beginning, I put Samael in charge of my health overall, and he did well. Back in the day when I was still like the so-called normal person, I got sick like once a year, twice a year, either a cold or a fever. And now it's been so long ago that I was sick that I literally can't remember. I think it was like maybe years ago, and even then it was like only a day or two. I immediately recover, even if I do get sick.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's how I
so
am.
yeah, I don't really need anything. I don't really need anything based on all of it, my energy and everything, and the guys I work with. That's more than enough. But Samael specifically deals with that, and or he's in charge of that. Uh, and no, there's nothing. And I would also not really recommend anything to anyone. There is no specific diet you need to follow. But if you're just the average person, I would simply recommend basic stuff in the way of information that you'd find out there. Eat healthy, exercise on
Mm-hmm.
occasion, and that's all.
Yeah, is there any spirit that you would, if someone said, "Hey, if I'm trying to work with a spirit to get, exercise routine and help myself lose weight," for me, I've been working. There's a multitude, but Satanchi right now, I've been working with pretty hardcore on getting me to go harder and stuff, and push my body to make different limits. But who would you use? Would you work with Samael still for that?
Yeah, I would work with someone else still for that. I um I also exercise now, but I didn't used to exercise because I didn't find it necessary. Really. I simply said to myself, I place high priority or emphasis on mental strength since day one, and not so much physical strength. My mental strength helps me push through any kind of physical barriers in general. Until I went on a specific treasure hunting expedition,
That's
specifically
cool.
to find hidden artifacts and whatnot. It's the third time that I did that. And I said to myself, if things don't go the way I want specifically, or some mishap occurs, which did, I'm simply done. I'm like, third time's the charm. I'm done. Otherwise, it's just a waste of resources and everything. Um, because I can, based on my work overall, I can easily like calculate through readings where artifacts are hidden in any part of the world and what kind of artifacts specifically, and it just goes on. And in
Oh,
my respective location, I have a lot of you have a lot of stuff like ancient artifacts like dinosaur eggs, shells that are like millions of years old. I know the prospect is exciting. Gold, like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of gold, diamonds, but again, I did it 3 times because the story was always the same. There is stuff there, but it's either inaccessible or it's of such a nature that we can't carry it back home. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fantastic. It's like seeing $1 million in your bank account, but it's frozen. The account is frozen. I'm like, okay, it's
yeah.
right there, but I can't withdraw. I can't do anything. I'm like, oh crap. Okay, fine. Just take some samples and go home. And that's what I did. And I said to myself the third time, this time my aim was at specifically a treasure that Europeans left behind, dating back to like the 16th, 17th century, like genuine treasure chest with old maps and stuff like that, and old coins from like the Renaissance period, etc. And I only made it like halfway because yeah, it's murderous. The journey is like you're putting your life on the line because you literally have to go through the rainforest and all of that crap, like really
Oh,
dangerous stuff.
wow.
Yeah, like stuff that will kill you, literally kill you. Um, and I put together an expedition with like experienced guides that do it for a living, like me and two other guys, and another guy from a nearby indigenous village, so like an indigenous guide. But due to complications, we simply had to turn back halfway throughout the whole thing. And you kept having like setback after setback, or better said, delay after delay. And I simply said to myself, listen, you know what? I've had enough of this because it's no cookie. Okay, you don't have access to basic stuff. Okay, simple things like clean water is hard to come by. Obviously, no bathroom, nothing. You want to go, you literally have to dig a hole and go. That's it.
I can do
And
that.
yeah, I did that forcefully. You have to sleep in a hammock. Stuff like that. Make no mistake, it's no cookie. Okay, it's really like grueling. And I was simply fed up with the whole situation. I said to myself, okay, you know what? We're going back home. I've had enough. This is the last time that I'm doing this. It's really the last time. Otherwise, I just keep spending like thousands of dollars on the whole thing, and it's just in the end, it's for naught. Okay, the experience is good, etc., but it's still okay. A matter of so close yet so far. It's literally a reference to what I said, like an example. You literally have like 10 million in your bank account, but you're seeing that it's frozen. Bank can't unfreeze it, so you're like, okay, you could be homeless and you're still like, okay, I'm a millionaire, but only in theory. I'm still homeless. I still can't do anything. That's the position I found myself in every single time. And I said to myself, nah, you know what? Nah, it's just, I've had enough. I've thought the third time's the last time.
Did you work with any entity for wealth while you were doing that, or in any entity to find hidden lost items, or did you just kind
No,
of go out
but
there with yourself and?
by default, I work with Sandalphon. He's in charge of wealth. He's like my financial manager. He's the guy that essentially is in charge of seeing to it that I make money and I make as much as possible. And I have no complaints, obviously. Um, but in relation to that specific project, treasure hunting, yeah, I work with an angel that I summoned specifically by the name of Alexander. He aligns with the planet Jupiter because Jupiter deals with stuff like that, wealth and whatnot, and treasure. And yeah, he was the ideal choice. The way I came about it, not in a grimoire or a workbook or anything, it's simply a simple ritual where you essentially ask the planet Jupiter, or I ask one of the guys I work with, Samael or Sandalphon, I said, hey, who can you recommend? And they simply like go, they do their thing. They're like, here, I have a guy for you. Poof. And the guy appears and you get his information. This is my name. Hello. I can help you with this and this and that. I can help you find treasure. And he essentially is simply like, it's almost like automatic writing. He simply says, go to Google Maps and, I'll take control of your hand and you do the rest, and he simply makes me click. And he's like, yep, there, and there. You have the coordinates, everything. He tells me what's hidden, like as in like there are like there's like $100,000 worth in diamonds there. It's like 10 meter deep in the soil. You need to do this, you need to do that. I'm like, okay, cool. And I go about for the rest. I simply do my homework. I analyze the entire area, the territory. I see what nature it is, what it would take to get from there all the way from the city all the way to there. Everything that I have to invest, etc. I'm like, okay. And I did this. I did this dreet of how many times did I do it? 6, 7 times. Like I said, I
Ooh.
have in total like 3 sagas or sagas. Yeah. First time was like I went to 2 locations, and the location I went to, I was supposed to find gold. Good news is I did find gold. Bad news is that it was still like in its stages of infancy. So I was like, I think I was like 10 years too early or something like that. Because it was like gold, but it's encased in clay and it's not in the rock form. It's like gold dust essentially, like heavy layers of gold dust. And I'm like, I'm like, no, this is gold, but it's purely in dust form, so we can't do anything about that. It's no good to us.
Yeah.
We still ended up chugging that huge block of like clay home, like as big as a boulder, with tremendous difficulty, putting it in the car. Boom! Oh my god! Okay, now to drive home. That thing weighed like 50 kilograms. Like I said, in my article, the very first article, you see all of that. I have a huge block of clay and everything, and it's like gold in it. But extracting it was a pain in the ass. And I was like, yeah, listen, we're just going to throw the fucking thing away. There's no point in it. I tried everything. I was like, nah, it simply can't be extracted. And because it's literally embedded alongside the mud in the clay itself, it's gold dust. We're like 10 years too early. It was supposed to like, it needs to harden to the point where it turns into a lump. Um, I was like, yeah, fine. Experience richer. After like 2 years, like 2 years ago, 2021, I got like a posse of guys together. One of them was really experienced in like, because he like lives outside the city, like a typical country guy, like hillbilly, but he really knows his stuff. Like he lives off the land, fishing, hunting. So yeah, um, we did the same thing again. I got some samples out of it, but that's it. The samples contain iron, and I found huge concentrations of marble, raw marble. But It wasn't worth it, honestly, because we ended up risking our lives going to like really devastatingly remote locations in the rainforest. Like we're talking about 10 kilometers deep, and we did that 3 to 4 times, and it's just murderous because everything in the rainforest wants to kill you. You don't have to be afraid of the animals. The animals will avoid you. They're afraid of humans, but everything wants to kill you. The simple vegetation wants to kill you. This one tree is like in diameter, like 10 meters, I think, in diameter. That's how brutal it is. So you see a tree that's fallen over, the simple uprooting that piece of soil where it was uprooted is like a freaking huge sinkhole. And it's like if you fall in that thing, it's game over.
Oh,
And yeah, you also need to be careful of some animals like venomous pit vipers, etc. Because there are some badass thingies. Okay, in the rainforest, you've got like the bushmaster and the fur-de-lance. Fur-de-lance is French, simply means lance head. Let's just say if these snakes bite you, you've got like an hour to live. Game over, literally. And one of my guys, the most experienced one, actually almost stepped on one. And in the rainforest, you'll find like fully grown ones, not like little babies or anything, like ones that are like 1 to 2 meters long, like huge, big bitches. And if these guys bite you, it's literally game over. You've got like half an hour to live. And I saw him look at the ground and I'm like, what are you looking at? I'm too busy trying to traverse the area. And he's like, I stepped on a snake almost. I was like, what? Where? He's like, it went under that big tree there. I was like, it's a fur-de-lance, isn't it? Like brownish, yellowish? Yeah. He was like, yeah. I was like, oh crap, it's a fur-de-lance now. You've got huge nests with adults and their babies. Like you'll find 20, 24 of them, 2 dozen in an area. It's the really dangerous stuff, okay? Leopards, deer, everything. We saw fresh tracks. I was like, these tracks are from last night. And you can't see anything. It's total darkness. It's like it's 8 p.m. because the trees are so big and so densely concentrated and so packed up that it blocks out the sun. You can't see anything. And not to mention the fact that it's mountainous, so you have to climb mountains that are like 100 meters tall at a 45-degree angle. Any person that's like gone up a road or a highway that goes like that, like a bridge, an arch, knows how brutal it is if you're a jogger. It's like you just even let's just say that even a car can't handle that. A simple two-wheel drive car cannot handle that pressure. The
wow.
engine will give out. So I ended up so tired that I literally felt my organs like slowly collapsing or eroding. I know because usually when that happens, your body is like in overdrive to the point where it wants to collapse. You get the sensation that you need to go. Number one as well as number two. The sensation is there, but you don't need to actually go. But it's your body's way of signaling that, hey, listen, we're already long gone, okay? No, nothing. There's nothing left. We're dead. We're done. So essentially, your bladder and your colon are like starting to slowly shut down. And that's what happened to me. And I was like, oh crap, can't even walk anymore. We went in the rainforest at 10 a.m. and we came out at 6:30 p.m. That's how long it took. And it took over 8 hours. And how much did we do? Literally only 8 kilometers, four going back and forth.
Oh
Like,
my god.
your top speed is 2 meters every 15 minutes. That's how dense everything is. You can't walk, you can't move, you can't do anything. You have to do like this. I can't do anything. And all the plants are like so itchy, and you get like you feel your entire body itching because they also have like mild dosages of venom and huge needles. Where I literally was like, my entire arms like bled heavily, like someone cut me with a knife because I ended up doing this constantly. Oh crap!
Oh my gosh.
Like actual needles that are like 5 centimeters in length. Um, on the second article where I went, it's called "Continuing the Treasure Hunt." I have a I have a separate video on that specific plant because that plant is an indicator of gold being in the area. Of course, not one. You have to come across like 5 or 6 of them, and I essentially explain it. Uh, I essentially explain it because I had like a separate expedition I went on specifically to document that plant. And yeah, everything I say in that video speaks for itself. And I show people, I tell my cameraman, hey, take a close up, everything. This is what the tree looks like. It's like, imagine a cactus on steroids, tropical variety. That's what these plants look like. If you, for example, fall in one of them, oh boy, you're not getting back up. But these plants, if you see like 5 or 6 of them, like a garden variety, then that means that there's gold nearby or precious metals, gold or diamonds.
Is that just like an omen that you kind of see that it just kind of shows it, or is there an actual natural reason why
Scientific
that?
explanation, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a natural, just scientific explanation. These trees specifically, or these plants, they only grow in areas where the soil has a specific kind of geographical property that makes it so that gold is also highly prone to being in these locations or anything that's of value. And amongst guys that don't even work scientifically, guys that purely work by their own wits, they told me that as well. Because I was with one of them once, and he told me, "Hey, Morino, you know what gold miners call this tree, this plant? They call it the thing. They call it the gold plant because allegedly there is gold hidden anytime you see this plant." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm well aware, but yeah, I had the scientific explanation. You guys purely work on like a classical prospector, like in a classical prospector like fashion, where you guys just memorize stuff and you pass it on through generations, and that's it." But hey, I know what time it is because I've noticed it several times. Like every expedition I went on, the second there was like gold nearby, I'm like, yeah, I see that plant, and I see a lot of them, like 6, 7, 10. I'm like, yeah, that's why. But yeah, in any case, the third one, I was simply aiming for an old European treasure. I had everything, coordinates, everything was confirmed, readings, everything were like, yep, you good to go. And I said to myself, listen, this is the third and the last time. If things, I demand nothing but absolute success. If things still don't work out, then yeah, I'm done with the whole bit. Then it's way too impractical. Um, and yeah, that turned out happening. We didn't even get close. We like essentially covered half the distance because it was going to be grueling. It was going to be like 16 kilometers into the rainforest, like or 18, a round trip of 9 kilometers going back and forth. And we only covered like 10 kilometers before we forcibly had to turn back. And I was like really fed up. I was like, absolutely not. I didn't come all this way for this bullshit. I'm like, no, I've had enough of this. I'm like, nah, I'm going back home. Let's catch the first flight back home. And we're done at the nearest village. And that brings me to my point. In order to, because I knew what I was going up against and I knew that I had no stamina. I could barely like run 25 meters for you without completely collapsing. And I spent like 2 weeks prior to the last treasure hunting trip simply drilling myself mercilessly, running around my house. Let's just say one lap around my house is like what, a couple of 100 meters or something like that. And I forcibly just pushed myself relentlessly to build up the stamina needed to survive that thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to make it like a 1%. And I did so. At the end of the 2 weeks, I could like go a couple of kilometers without getting tired. I'm like, yeah, this is enough. I can sprint for like half a kilometer and the rest I can easily walk. It doesn't matter how long I have to walk. I could keep walking, walking, walking. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I simply said to myself, after the whole thing was done, I simply said to myself, I'm I simply said to myself, I'm going to. I actually enjoyed it. You know, it's like your body actually asks for it after a while. The beginning is super painful and brutal, but after a while, you know, it's like going to the gym. Your muscles essentially they enjoy the feeling of growth and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
I said to myself, I think I'm going to keep doing this. I don't have to do it as intensely, but like once a week is okay. I'm like, yeah, once a week is okay. And that's when I started working out, and I still work out. I have like what, 2 9-pound hand dumbbells or those hand weights that you lift. And regarding sprinting, I simply go at my own pace. I on average I have an app on my phone that tracks my movement and just gives me all the details, how fast I run per like minute, how many meters per minute, or and what the total distance is that I've covered. On average I run like a 1.5 kilometers every week. Yeah,
Oh
between
yeah.
1 and 1.5. So I simply retained that and I said to myself, no, it's good. It's good to always exercise and balance yourself out, not just spiritually, but also physically.
I think that they go hand in hand without a doubt because what better I feel inside,
Mm-hmm.
and then if I have to get a ritual out of my system, I can go on a sprint and get out all that extra energy, or if I have aggression and I need to get it out before the ritual, so I can be able to be in that calm serenity if that's what the ritual calls for. I do think that they're so integrated, to a point where cancer and stuff can happen if you don't have things balanced in your life, and that could be emotion too.
Yeah.
Something that you don't have fully cleansed and take care of. You always have to keep yourself in that balance. And I know, but yeah, dude, we came up with an hour, and I just wanted to kind of keep it on that. And I definitely would love to have you back on. And this has really been awesome, Morino. That's so cool. Expeditions. It's funny. I was thinking about in a couple of years trying to build something up like that, but now what you're saying, I'm over here thinking maybe not in the forest, and definitely not spelunking. I'm not trying to go into caves underwater.
Yeah,
That's
I wouldn't recommend it as well. It's like you know that if something goes wrong there, that you're going to die. I
yeah,
probably. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um,
It's a big, what's worth it? Like I would go on a mountain, but the
uh,
forest maybe not.
yeah,
Desert
yeah,
possibly,
yeah.
possibly.
Yeah, it has to be worth it. But like I said, the problem is that there is no literal guarantee. If you had a literal guarantee, as in God Himself guarantees you, as in yeah, if you go, that you'll find what you'll be looking for and you can bring it back home, then yeah. But imagine literally going so far, like 20 kilometers into the desert, you're like completely dehydrated, partially, etc. Your hand is starting to shrivel up and everything. And then you only find out as in, hey, listen, okay, we found what we came here for, but there's a problem. It's too deep, like 5 meters deep, and we can't dig that deep, and there's a sandstorm coming. And then you're going to forcibly, without wanting to be the case, you're going to forcibly have to make a turnaround, and you're going to be fed up. You're going to be like, shit, we made all of that effort for nothing because we
Mm.
still came up empty handed. As in, it's there, but we can't realistically access it. It was the same thing with me because the other guys told me, as in, hey, you should have like an earth mover or a digger come here. I'm like, seriously? Have you seen how deep we are? No thing would survive here. An earth mover won't be able to come here. If you do, it's going to be laughably expensive, like 100K expensive. No, no, no. Come on, no.
Yeah, you need a
So
whole crew basically to pull off
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, but that's why generally speaking, prospecting and mining is definitely not for the faint of heart. At a corporate level, believe me, companies that engage in heavy set mining, where they mine like tons of gold, like we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars every year, to get such an operation going even halfway, it's going to cost at least a couple of million, at least 5 to 10 million. So yeah,
Mm.
you really need to. You've got your work cut out for you, and these companies go into meticulous planning for years, like 5 to 10 years before they follow through on their actions. They really look at everything from every possible vantage point and everything. So as an individual, simply from an individualistic perspective, I would say it's not worth it because, like I said, I have like, if I wanted to, I still have plenty of locations I could go to. I could literally go to locations where I saw dinosaur eggs that are like worth 750K, $750,000, 1.5 million, like genuine dinosaur eggs. But I said to myself, nah, it's simply not worth the trouble. It's just, the same thing is going to happen over and over again, or is highly prone to happening over and over again. And it's just not worth all the trouble because every time you're doing that, you're risking your life, and there is no
Mm.
alternative. There is no easy way. You can't say, hey, I'm just going to take a helicopter and they're going to drop me there. They can't do it. I already inquired about all of that because it's me. So obviously, I plan everything down to the letter. And I asked a local helicopter company, can you guys like drop me on a specific location? They were like, nah, it's forested, right? No, we can't do that. It has to be completely open for at least like a couple of 100 meters so we can land and everything. I'm like, yeah, nah, that's not gonna work. I can't even like, even if I wanted to like military style, simply drop by rope, like Navy SEAL style or something.
Yeah.
You can't do that as well. They were like, nah, sorry, we don't support that. It's too dangerous. Okay, might if something happens, the helicopter might become unbalanced. We might crash. It just goes on and on. I'm like, yeah, see, there is no alternative. You have to go by foot, and by foot is brutal. It's just nah. It's deadly. It's just uh-uh. It's just
Yeah.
not doable. Okay, it's literally risking your life. When I when I emerged from the rainforest around 6:30, the second time I told you, all the two other guys I were with, they literally went like this: "We're alive, we're alive! I can't believe it, we're alive! We didn't die!" Huh? And I said to myself, okay, this is not the worst thing I've been through in my life, but this immediately hit the top five. This immediately came into the top five bracket. I was like, yeah, I'm not ever doing this again. No, 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 no.
Well,
This is what you.
I'll definitely be rethinking that then because I've been working on some other projects and I'm like, well, once they all take off, then maybe I could go fund some treasure hunts. But you're giving me some perspective here, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would recommend something that you can hypothetically do from the safety of your home. Something that requires primarily mental energy or something practical, something where there is not a lot at stake, so to speak, other than effort.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Well, everyone, be sure to check out Morino's website. I'm going to have that link down below. He has just plethoras of information, and also have your contact under there too. I'd definitely love to have you back on here. And everyone also check out my link to my course coming out, Blacklight Alchemy. I'll have that below. And do you have any final words for everyone?
Not really, just until next time, potentially.
Awesome. That sounds good. Thank you so